Alright, so I'm going to do a quick run through of how to build the new Pulse of the Darkness multi-phase style with special capability for the new Acolyte season finale. So there's a brand new animation and special ability called Corruption. It's actually using phase change. So we're going to build that style actually in the multi-phase blade builder. But then the actual new capability is going to be a special ability that you'll set. So you're going to want to go into the blade builder under multi-phase, etc. So it's at the top of the library. We'll go in, build a main blade. All right, and technically you can build as many phases as you want. So the library will handle this with however many phases, but for the specific season finale, we obviously had two styles. So I'm going to build them first. So you can build any of the effects you want, but I'm going to go kind of roughly what we had in the episode. Oops, nope, that's the second style. So we'll go there. First style I want there. All right, and then our alt color, which is what's going to run the second blade, we're going to want to change that. Okay, and then now for this new, it is a special ability. It will use alt font. There's a few other sounds you're going to have to set up. That'll be in the style code that gets generated. But basically, you're going to set your style. Now you can add more phases if you want. You can change up the colors. You can do everything else there. But we're just going to kind of go after that mimicking. And what we want to do is make sure you change the multi-phase to special abilities. And it's going to prompt us that we do need to set a special ability. And what you're going to do is this is set up as a special ability multi-phase blade, so that means you can also choose other controls. You're not stuck with that corruption animation, so you can use the blade for a lot of other things, but when you want to mimic what we saw in that episode, you can as well. So this does use alt font. So all that, but we're going to go special abilities. Now there's two new special abilities. I'm going to set these up simply, but you can customize as much as you want. The first one will be special ability 1 through 4 is going to be this new change phase corruption. So it's a brand new phase change that has the corruption built into it. Whereas when you do normal phase changes, you're using the transition that you select at the top. So just so everybody's aware, the phase change here, which you could do any of these, there's a ton of options. This phase change is for normal changing of phases, meaning you do next phase, random phase, previous phase, etc. It's going to do that transition animation. If you want the very jagged, the kind of battle of the two phases that we saw, that is actually a special ability because it actually is functioning a little different than the normal transition because we want to do other things with it. So that's where this new special ability comes in. So you can set up your change phase corruption as a special ability, whichever one you want. So we'll set that up. And then there's multiple effects. I'll expand on this. The corruption is actually its own effect. So it's going to corrupt with one of the phases, depending on which phase is active. You can choose. The episode kind of was really like a rotoscope. They had a little bit of instability, but nowhere near what we would consider instability. But I do have other options here, and this list will probably grow. And then you can set how long you want that change, the corruption, to take. So depending on the font you choose, and there are a couple font makers who I've been working with who have their own versions coming out, they actually have different sounds, so you can time this out. It can't auto time because of the methodology we're using. So what you're going to want to do is figure out how long your sound is for that corruption. So in the episode when the blade is being corrupted, there's a unique sound that runs over the top. It could be whatever you want. You could put any sounds you want there, but you probably want to time that out. It won't quite be what you see in that episode without it. But depending on which font you choose or what sound you choose, you're going to want to adjust this. This is obviously milliseconds, so 10,000 milliseconds is 10 seconds. In the demo video that I did a 5-second one because I kind of felt like it was much shorter than the episode, but it just kind of felt right. But it can be whatever time you want. Technically, if you set the time longer than your sound, it'll still run. It's just your sound's going to finish out before the animation does. So ideally, you're going to want to animate it by that. And then the second version, so this is 1 through 4. That's while the blade is on, and I'll demo it in a second. The second version you can do is an ignition and a corruption, which is what we actually see in the episode. So you'll choose here ignite and change phase with the corruption. All right, and what that's going to do is this will be a special ignition. So while your blade is off, you use special ability 5 or whichever one you set. You'll ignite your blade, and it will begin to do the corruption. Now we can also delay it. So in my demo video, I put a 2-second, which is 2,000 milliseconds delay, and then again I was running 5 seconds here. You can also change how the actual ignition you want, because it is a special ability ignition. You can change the time. You can also change the overall corruption effect. That's the effect of what's happening to the blade. But you can play around with all of these. Obviously, I'm going for what I just did in my demo video. So now I've got my style set up. So special ability 1 we'll show in a second, but special ability 5 is set up. The blade is turned off. That's why it turned itself off. When you choose a special ability 5 through 8, the first time you choose them, it actually automatically turns off, so you can preview it. So we'll do special ability 5, and this has a 2-second delay. So special ability 5 will do a standard ignition for 300 milliseconds, and then 2,000 milliseconds, 2 seconds afterwards, it will begin the corruption. And then the other part of this, which we obviously don't have, is the sound effect, which was another part of this. The alt font change, which is why this is a special ability, actually occurs after the blade is fully changed. Because we're going to have this battle of the two blades, this corruption, we don't want to switch the sound font too early, because it won't actually mimic what's happening. So you're going to want to set up that corruption sound, which is a transition sound. The style code will tell you what file name to give it, to kind of mimic what was in the episode or whatever you want. But even if you don't have that, the actual change of the alt font is not done until after the blade is fully corrupted. It's not going to change fonts out on you while it's kind of doing its thing. That wasn't really what we saw in the episode, and this gives you that other ability. If you wanted to do an immediate change, you would just use next phase. But so we'll do special ability 5. So it's going to ignite, and then 2 seconds later, it's going to start my corruption. And it is auto time based on the time you set for how long the corruption should take. At the end, it's going to battle for a few seconds, and then overtakes, and then you've got your full change. And right when that blade fully overtakes, that's when your sound font will change to the alt. That's using special ability 1, or special ability 5. That's an ignition and a corruption together. Now, once we're in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset it. So I'm going to set another phase. So you can also, because it's a special ability, you can set up other phase controls so you can easily toggle. So I'm going to set it up so that next phase, so a regular phase special ability is, again, going to use just a regular transition. So I set a phase up top. So that's just going to go that way. But if I want to do the corruption, while it's turned on, I'll set up my special ability, and again, this will do it, and this will use that animation of the corruption. And again, the actual change of the alt font doesn't happen until after the blade is fully corrupted. And you, again, can set your time however you want. But so special ability 1 now is set up to run a corruption, whereas special ability 2 is just going to always change next phase. So this way you kind of have the ability to either do the corruption or just do normal phase changes. You can also set up a bunch of other stuff. Obviously, Cortosis Clash would probably go really well, so you could probably activate a Cortosis Clash special ability, etc. We'll save that for another video. But let's do special ability 1. And you'll see it's going to do the corruption effect. And again, it's timed out. It'll take about 5 seconds. The very end of it still has that battle. That was kind of a defining moment in the episode. Is it doesn't, like if we just did so I'll just, for our purposes, the reason I built corruption was because if you just do a wipe, right? So this is a normal wipe. It's going to do, oops, it activated corruption because we were still in that screen. Let's go, we'll add, we'll leave this. This is just for those of you who use the library. If you ever want to reload a style, just hit that little guy there, the refresh. It'll reload you from start 0. But now, if I do, so this is a wipe animation using the regular next phase. So you see, it just kind of overtakes. That's not what we saw in the episode. The episode was a very jagged, a real conflict between the two blades. So rather than just a wipe, I built out this new special ability to not only control when we do the alt font change, which should happen after the blade is fully corrupted, but also to throw in that corruption sound so that it's timing itself out based on what you've selected. So now when we do special ability 1, you'll see instead of just a regular wipe running up the blade, this is a conflict. This is randomized, so the amount of conflict will change every time you ignite the blade with the special ability, but it is also time. So it's time to finish all of that movement and jaggedness in 5 seconds, or however many milliseconds you set. So we'll do it one more time just so you can see. So the regular wipe is a very smooth wipe up. We can use bend time technically, although the bend time on transitions for alt font I haven't added to the library yet because there's a couple little things that have to get sorted out there, but that would be something you could hand code. But it still wouldn't mimic what we see in the episode. That's why I kind of went this approach of a special ability, is because what's happening in the episode is not a clean change. It's not a smooth change. It is a conflict of corruption. So here's what we get with that. So you get that battle. It's not a smooth thing. It's fighting its way up. and then even at the end you get a little bit of pushback on it, and then it finally loses. So that's the concept behind it. That is all built into that special ability in order to make that animation run that way. But so that's how you build it. It is in phase 3 for early access. There are a couple font makers that I've been in communication with who do have fonts coming. I'll leave it to them to do those announcements. But definitely keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, if you want to start building out your styles, the style code will generate and you can test it. And it'll also tell you what sound effects are required. So obviously alt font, and then there's going to be, depending on the special abilities you choose, there are going to be some TR sounds that need to be added as well. Those are primarily for the, if you're choosing corruption, the actual corruption effect is a TR sound. It's not going to be alt change because we do the alt change after the corruption. So the corruption is going to happen before we change alt fonts. And again, that's part of the reason it is set up as a special ability, is that special abilities give us the ability to change how things work. If you just do phase change, the alt font is changed immediately, but that's not what we see in the episode. So I wanted to make sure we could actually match what we saw in the episode. Hence, that's why special abilities are added in OS 7, because they give us a ton of flexibility in terms of what we want to have happen with the blade. Every time we want something new, it's very easy to add with a special ability, because special abilities are just that. They're the ability to add some special code to a style and have it operate however we want. So lots more to come. Keep an eye out, obviously, for those fonts, and hope you enjoy.